Chapter 9. Abi Oat had been a groundskeeper for 50 years, and in all those years, he had never seen anybody do something like this. Some alien idiot had landed a warship on his grass. The airlock opened, and 3 aliens came down a ramp. Oat began ranting and cursing at them. This was made easier by the fact that nobody on New Rannoch wore environmental suits. They had when they had first arrived. But after 2 years, the slow work of phasing them out had begun. The last suits had been retired 90 years ago. Now, only naval personnel wore them. And only when they went ashore. Abi's rant was ended when a large shuttle with the Admiral's seal also landed on his grass. He threw his hands up and stomped off in anger. On the ramp, Ayers, Harris, and McKinley watched him go. "I think we ruined his grass," McKinley said. "Can we focus, please?" Zara said, "We're doing first contact here, people." "Aye, Captain." The large shuttle opened a hatch and 2 Quarians stepped out. Like the grumpy old man, they were not wearing suits. Zara was surprised by their appearance. Except for their hands and feet, they were remarkably human-like. Their skin was purple, and their hair appeared to come in the same shades as human hair. One of the 2 newcomers was young with a short, black beard and short hair. This one wore jeans, a black t-shirt, and a white vest. His companion was old and clean-shaven. He was wearing a gray business suit. Zara led the way down the ramp. The Quarians spoke first. "Welcome to New Rannoch. I am Admiral Harash," the young one said. "And this is Vice Admiral Rackle. Captain Zara Ayers of the Systems Alliance. This are Lieutenant Rick McKinley, our chief pilot, and Navigator Harris. Nice to meet you all. Now, if you'll follow us, I believe we have some explaining to do," Harash said. The Quarians led the way towards one of the nearby buildings. It turned out that Ain Jalut was parked in the capital city of New Rannoch, which was the town of Axalis. And even better, the ship was right next to the Museum of History. When the ghosts had found New Rannoch, it had been a barren planet covered in ice, but there had been Prothean ruins. It turned out that the camouflage the Ain Jalut had passed through was a Prothean creation, but the Protheans had not been able to activate it before being wiped out. They were sitting on a pair of benches in the museum's main hall. It was McKinley who asked the question. "Wiped out by who or whom? Have you ever heard of Reapers?" Zara realized that they were getting down to the heart of the matter. She explained about Commander Shepard, Normandy, and Sovereign, and she didn't pull any punches about the politicians and Admiral being in denial. When she was done, the Admiral and Vice Admiral exchanged looks. For their body language, Zara got the impression that the Vice Admiral was giving the Admiral his support. "Then maybe we can provide them with the evidence they need." The Admiral took out some kind of remote. It was clearly designed for a Quarian hand with 2 fingers and a thumb. He pushed a big red button. The benches faced towards a large with models of the 7 ships the Quarians had arrived in. It slid to the left, revealing a flight of stairs down to an elevator guarded by 2 armed guards. "The museum is on top of the Prothean ruins?" Harris asked. "Most of the capital is," Harash said. "This is one of only 3 ways down there. The other 2 are at defense headquarters. It's the most heavily defended building on the whole planet." Harash led the way down the stairs. Zara gave the others a nod and they followed. Rackle took up the rear. As they entered the elevator, McKinley turned to the Vice Admiral. "Just curious, how many people are there on New Rannoch?" 22 million, give or take a few thousand. Before he could gasp at the number, the elevator began falling. The Prothean ruins were massive. From what the Quarians could tell, the Protheans had been trying to build a massive time capsule, but the Reapers had found them before they could camouflage it. After years of study, the colonists had figured out how to make the needed repairs and turned the system on. The system had pushed the gas outward and created the shell. Later, the ghosts had added the mines. With the gas gone, more UV light had reached New Rannoch, and the planet had begun to thaw. Hence the southern continent's tropical climate. The thaw had also freed up considerable resources and liberated the colonists from their population limits, which had resulted in several baby booms over the years. As for the information in the time capsule, the Reapers had dropped the ball for once. They had wiped out the people creating the capsule, but the capsule itself had survived. There had been 1 main unit and 7 backups. They had missed one of the backup units, and after more than 2 centuries of study, the ghosts were now Reaper experts, which had left them with a moral dilemma. Ayers and Harash were standing on a balcony overseeing part of the ruins. We could stay silent or we could speak up, Harash said, neither being a safe bet, Zara said. You risk either facing the Reapers alone or a hostile/disbelieving reaction from a galaxy run by the politicians only caring about covering their own asses. And millions or trillions lives depending on us getting it right. So, where does the MSV Frankenstein fit into this puzzle? And Aaron and Olaf McKinley, why take them and broadcast it to the galaxy? Not to mention stealing a section of Omega and leaving it on your own doorstep. We have a dozen scout ships, but they can gather only so much information. The Frankenstein has a mixed crew. So we figured that interviewing them would give us a lot of information. And if it caused their governments to yell at one another, that would a bonus source of info. I presume you tapped into the Com Bowie network long ago? I can see why they made you captain. And yes, we did. But our plot didn't work. Captain O'Connell and his crew told us what they could. However, their disappearance didn't cause the reaction we hoped for. No offense, but we were hoping for more than one ship. So you threw a bigger stick of dynamite in the water. Dynamite. It's a human kind of explosive, sometimes used for a crude kind of fishing. Ah, he nodded. Yes, we threw a bigger stick of dynamite in the water, but our Frankenstein friends told us that Citadel space was not the only pool around. Hence the attack on Omega. We picked a section that we knew was mostly storage. Everybody who was inside is alive and well on New Rannoch. And before you ask, the fuel depot and Alpha weren't part of the plan. Frankenstein was supposed to be intercepted before Vienna, but our dreadnought suffered engine trouble. And Scoutship 7 was intercepted by pirates, so they did what they were trained to do. Zara nodded. The System Alliance was no fan of pirates. Had she been in that cell, she would have done her best to bring about the same outcome. So, how do we go about untangling this situation? I don't have a detailed plan, but a guided tour of your ship might be a good place to start. I can work with that. And so the New Rannoch negotiations began. Chapter 10. The guided tour had helped calm down the captains and commanders, especially when they learned that the Normandy-class was joined Humanitarian project. Dr. Telos had represented the Asari. She had been allowed to examine all the offworlders on New Rannoch. They were all staying in a luxurious hotel in Axali's city center. Ain Jalut couldn't hold them all, so the Frankenstein was being turned into a liner with enough space for them all. As for the option of them leaving, the captains and commanders had all voted for them being allowed to go. They were also welcome to stay, but due to biology, most Quarian food was non-edible for other species. With that settled, they had decided to take a break for lunch. Now they were going back into the meeting hall. It was the same one where Harash had met with the captains and commanders before. Telos had finished in the hotel, so was joining them to represent the Asari. Let's start with the rude question, Zara began. What do you have to defend New Rannoch? You can't expect us to. One of the captain began, before Harash gave him a furious glare. One of the commanders decided to break the situation wide open. The minefield in the shell, 2 dreadnoughts, 14 nuclear missile silos with 10 missiles each, and 120 AA guns, which includes 3 ground-to-orbit cannons. The smaller units are meant to shoot down dropships. There was an awkward silence. Everybody in the room seemed to sense that it would not be enough against the Reapers. Harash took a deep breath, then spoke up. If things stay as they are, we're going to get wiped out, aren't we? Yes, Zara said. Unless we stand together, the whole galaxy is going to be wiped out. The silence returned, but its tone had shifted from awkward to dark. Ain Jalut was only one ship. There was only so much she could do. Zara wished her brother Redmond was here. He always knew what to say, even when things were at their darkest. So she imagined what he would say if he was here. This situation calls for a box of Cubans. Cubans? Harash asked. Are those some kind of weapon? Zara only smiled in reply. 10 minutes later, the meeting hall had been turned into a war room. Private Barnaby had brought a box of Cuban cigars and 2 bottles of whiskey from the captain's private stash. One bottle was for Zara and Telos, and the other was for their hosts. A paper map of the new Rannoch system and the shell was on the table. Pencils and erasers were spread all over, as were several sharpeners. 2 bowls had been commandeered as ash trays. Zara lit her cigar with a match and studied the map. "You know these things are really unhealthy?" Telos asked. "I know, but they worked for Churchill, and I'll take all the help I can get." "Church who?" Zara gave Telos a look. "What? I didn't study Earth history." "Can we please focus of saving New Rannoch?" Harash asked. "Of course, Admiral." Zara picked up one of the pencils and began discussing her ideas for defending the planet. SSV Ain Jalut. 0 hour. Ain Jalut had spent more than a day negotiating with the ghosts and setting up several nasty surprises for the Reapers. The deal was simple. Ain Jalut would escort the MSV Frankenstein out of the shell. The ship would travel to the Citadel and inform them of the ghosts' offer. Any species that provided 2 ships for the defense of New Rannoch would be granted full access to the Prothean database. Providing a 3rd vessel would grant the right to establish an embassy on the planet. And because they had been demilitarized, there was a special clause for the Krogan. They got the embassy and access for free. And for every 50 Krogan that volunteered to join the new Rannoch ground forces, the ghosts would pay for a Athabasca-class freighter to be built and added to the Krogan fleet. Zara had used the 3-hour trip to the first asteroid belt to turn this offer into as official a diplomatic document as she could. Once they were clear of the shell, she would transmit the file to Hackett and get the ball rolling on getting official backup on the plan. She turned off the computer and walked out of her quarters. All of the non-Quarians had chosen to leave New Rannoch. They were all aboard the MSV Frankenstein, with 2 exceptions. Aaron and Olaf McKinley were sitting in the mess hall, writing with pen and paper. No, Zara realized, they were using feathers and 2 ink jars. Aaron had blue ink while Olaf was writing in red. They were writing in a bound leather book with blank pages. "Hello, Aaron. Hello, Olaf. What are you doing?" Aaron swallowed when she saw Zara. After all, the last time they met, Zara had been the bad cop, but Olaf nudged her and she snapped out of it. "Well, the book, with the feathers and the ink, was a gift from Admiral Harash. This is how they used to keep the logs on their ships," Olaf said. "Blue for the XO and red for the captain. We flipped a coin and I won. Anyway, not using their gifts would be rude, so we decided to put them to good use." Aaron turned the book so that Zara could read the title out loud. New Rannoch, an official report for Admiral Stephen Hackett by Aaron McKinley and Olaf McKinley. After that came 4 pages of the neatest, most clear handwritten text that Zara had ever seen. It also came with several photos and hand-drawn pencil drawings. "We're about halfway done," Aaron said, "and once we're finished, we'll send it to Admiral Hackett. Carry on then." The 2 of them went back to work while Zara went to find lunch. After lunch, Zara headed up to CIC. As she made her way up the stairs, she wondered why Aaron and Olaf had asked to make the trip aboard the Ain Jalut, and why she had approved it. She knew that Aaron and Lieutenant McKinley had bonded, but was that enough to allow 2 children aboard a warship? Her common sense was saying no, but a voice in the back of head was saying yes. Before she could ponder it further, she reached Harris. He was running diagnostics on something. "Did you know our young passengers are writing an official report for Hackett?" "It was my idea." "A warship is boring for kids their age. I figured giving them something to do would help, ma'am." "A warship is no place for kids their age. I should have said no when they asked." "Captain, Area T-Loc helping us was just off. We didn't know that the stolen chunk of Omega was rather worthless." But you can bet folding money that she did. There were only 7 people on that piece, counting Mocklin, who now owes twice. She's playing games. Now, when that shoes drops, do you want the kids to be on the unarmed vessel in this situation? I knew there was a reason we made you an officer." "Just doing my job, ma'am. I've got more paperwork to do. Call me when we reach the edge of the shell." "Aye, Captain." As Zara headed back towards her quarters, she just hoped that her instincts had been wrong for once. Several log entries and reports later, she was back in CIC. Ain Jalut was only a few minutes away from leaving the shell. Next to her, Frankenstein was keeping pace. The first sign that something was wrong was an unknown signature at the edge of scanner range. It was massive. Skipper. Rodriguez began. Is it me, or does that look a lot like a Reaper? The answer came in the form of a single shot from the ship, which sliced the Frankenstein in half. As the freighter exploded, Ain Jalut dove back into the shell. McKinley had not even waited for the order. The Battle of New Rannoch had begun. To be continued,